Good afternoon. Today is July 16th, 2020. Thank you and welcome to everyone for joining us today. I am Phil Santonzi, Director of Client Engagement Services at Florida Makes. I welcome you to our Florida Makes webinar series. As a participant, your audio will be in listen-only mode using your phone or your computer, whichever is more convenient. During the webinar, there will be an opportunity to ask your questions using the question window you'll find in the control panel. Add your questions there and we will address those as time allows at the end of the presentation. This is a live webinar event which will be recorded. A link to the recording will be provided to you within a few days. Florida Makes is the Florida member of the National MEP Network. MEP is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which is a program in the U.S. Department of Commerce and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. We are the alliance network of the regional manufacturers associations in Florida. Our mission is to improve the productivity and technical performance of Florida manufacturers. If you would like to know more about us, please check out our website, as you see there, www.floridamakes.com. Okay. As a participant, as I said, your audio will be in listen-only mode, and you can ask questions as we go there using the question window. And we will provide this recording to all of you who attend. Okay, in this presentation, Business Success Through Environmental Sustainability, you will learn about why in today's world, manufacturing organizations must optimize value creation, whether through reducing costs, enhancing employee retention, or building brand reputation. Sustainable manufacturing creates win-win opportunities for manufacturers, and it can help companies manufacture products through economically sound processes that minimize negative environmental impacts while conserving energy and natural resources. This webinar will provide an overview of business opportunities rapidly growing due to market demand for sustainable solutions, and how you can plan for your company's environmentally sustainable journey through topics like green chemistry, green buildings, circular economy, and waste to value. Today's speaker is Ms. Ana Maria Leal. Ana Maria is a sustainability advisor with over 10 years of experience in environmental sustainability programs such as life cycle assessment, material health evaluation, cradle-to-cradle assessments, total resource use and efficiency, supply chain optimization, environmental product declarations, and circular economy strategies. Her work has helped global manufacturers change product attributes and processes that have negative effects in natural ecosystems and negative effects on humans, while helping specify products for the growing green markets. If you could now just join me in welcoming Ana. We look forward to the presentation, Ana.
Thank you, Phil, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Florida Makes, for inviting me to provide an overview on environmental sustainability as business strategy to build resiliency, leadership, and economic opportunity. Right, so the first thing that I want to point out today is that sustainability, it's a science that has provided the knowledge, tools, and strategies to minimize the negative environmental effects of use of resources and materials, and has enabled potentially positive effects on the global, local environment, communities, societies, and the economy. Sustainability is used by organizations to improve their processes, pursue growth, and add value to their companies, shareholders, and audience, and is helping organizations to meet the triple bottom line. As you probably have heard about the triple bottom line for sustainability, this is the three pillars of the science. Typically, we speak about people, the planet, and profit. But today, because all the events, unexpected events that have happened globally, there is a new, three new pillars that have emerged and they are equity, economy, and ecosystems. When we speak about equity, this pillar means that we are getting or working to get to a system with no throwaway resources, inclusive for people, communities, or businesses. We talk about ecosystems that seek to, or we're looking for these ecosystems to thrive, but not only the natural and biological ecosystems, also urban and economy systems will be thriving under sustainability. And the last is the economy, looking at all types of capital, human, natural, intellectual, social, financial, and including paid allocation of resources to make these ecosystems thrive. So this new proposal for the three-legged stool or the pillars of sustainability have provide an opportunity for businesses to embrace sustainability and see improvements in their brand value as well as in the quality of the solutions they provide to the market. Okay, let's take a poll here. If you would like to, I'd appreciate if you would like to take this poll. It's to find out how do you think sustainability can increase brand value. So a few seconds here. Okay.
Okay, we'll give it a few more
Let's
seconds.
see. Sure. All right, let's see. Okay,
So it
that's
looks like
great. So
56%. Yeah, 56% got the right answer, right, Anna?
correct, that's correct. All right, so yeah, so that's exactly what the sustainability has done to businesses, organizations that have already embraced. Let me advance the slides. I'm going to take a little some time to advance. Okay, here we are. So yeah, so those organizations that have embraced sustainability already or are on the journey to sustainable practices have experienced growing demand for their product solutions or materials, are also seeing a reduction in risks and secure future earnings for their business. So what has happened is that more funding in more funding is available these days for businesses that are uh, providing an opportunity to address the environmental impacts. In our, as an example, the BlackRock Green Bond is financing projects with a positive environmental impact. And we are also seeing some global companies allocating large funds to address the GHG emissions and deforestation associated to their supply chain and their products. So this is expected that by 2030, 2040, all of these companies have increasing funding for projects that will create a positive impact by addressing environmental sustainability. At the bottom of this slide, there is a link if you want to read more about investment and how these new pillars of sustainability are kind of pivoting the way that we look and integrate sustainability in businesses. I invite you to read. It's a very interesting article. Okay. So the 5 keys to achieving sustainability or sustainable manufacturing. We want to thank the Florida Sustainable Chamber of Commerce and her president, Tammy Stulz Wagner, who has provided the 5 keys to achieving sustainable manufacturing. Basically, every manufacturer is looking for ways to reduce costs. And while they reduce costs, they would like to see improvements in cash flow, and sustainable practices can do just that. These 5 keys are providing an easy framework for developing your overall sustainability strategy or any project. So the first key is commitment. It's a call for action to developing a winning plan to achieve sustainable manufacturing while meeting your business goals. And why we're seeing more organizations or enterprises committing today? Well, before COVID, there were some market forces demanding change, in particular because there has been a challenge to the traditional linear business model in which we take, make, and waste resources. And when we see that the earth capacity is being compromised because there is more solid waste than what the earth can absorb, and because there are more demand for resources than what we can find available, this traditional linear business model is challenged. So that has happened some years ago, and now is one of those pressing forces for changes in manufacturing. The other factor is public demand for safer products. There has been studies in proof that toxins of concern in products for many, many years have caused cancer, respiratory diseases, and hormonal disruption. So public demand for safer products is one of those important forces that have changed practices and is changing the way we formulate products. Now, the third force is litter pollution and pricing more for producer responsibility. So that means that the manufacturer will have to take responsibility for the products that they put in the market, meaning that they have to figure out ways to reduce waste and reintegrate the materials back into the productive cycle, but obviously we look at safer materials. Now with COVID, what has happened is that there is an increasing call for sustainability or sustainable practices, because in fact, sustainability has for a long time talked about how we have to optimize supply chain. So with all the COVID-19 events happening globally, there seems to be an urgency to bring more of those sustainable practices to help us address supply chain disruptions, looking at ways to alleviate large inventory of unsold products that might become solid waste, looking at market uncertainty and what can happen with all these products that are or will be projected to be in the market. Also looking at shortage of materials. If we don't have materials, how can we manufacture? So optimizing those supply chains and having available local materials is important. And then the materials price volatility. So those have been forces that we are seeing are increasing the demand for sustainable practices. And this is the main reason for your company to commit, to really embrace change, differentiate, and help build back a better economy that have resilient businesses in better communities. So once you are ready to commit, you will change your mindset for a systems approach where you rethink the whole production consumption system, where you look at additional income streams. Waste is not more waste, but can become feedstock and has value. And when you can cut on greenhouse gas emissions, manage risk, the litter and pollution from your products. So after you are ready and you see the value and you commit, the next key to achieving sustainable manufacturing is assessment. Assessment can happen at different levels. One, it's at the facility level, the next one at the process level, and the third one at the product level. What's important here is that the first step is you need to identify how you are going to measure assessment, because the key for sustainability is keeping track of progress. You need to have indicators that are that make sense for your facility, make sense for your organization, indicators of performance. So you need to think about what can be more beneficial for your facility to improve in efficiency and reduce operating costs. Typically, the indicators that are used for assessment at the facility level are energy, water usage, and waste generation. So for the energy, a perfect tool is using energy audits that will help you identify inefficiencies and then place corrective actions, and maybe looking for equipment that is deficient or is old and replacing it with more efficient equipment, and also looking at building operations. At the water level, we can also track consumption across the entire facility and see what are the impacts to water discharge, or actually impacts from water discharge at water reservoirs or water bodies around the facility. The third indicator around waste, looking at how your organization is managing solid waste, how much you spend on waste collection. Having a solid waste audit will also help you to identify inefficiencies and place corrective actions. For the waste, what we are seeing in the US is an increasing use of programs like the Total Resource Use and Efficiency. This is a program oriented to helping organizations become kind of a zero waste facility or reach up to 90% increase solid waste management up to 90%. So the idea here is that once you perform a solid waste audit, then you identify at 9 points of waste creation, where are the opportunities for improvement, and then the program will help flesh out the different strategies, including being right sizing, reducing materials coming in and out the facility, reusing what's within the facility, like equipment, supplies, redesigning processes and products that are inefficient, and also recycling whenever possible, reselling surplus materials, keeping track of those materials and maybe trading within different organizations, composting within or outside the facility, and innovating in ways that your organization don't pay more than what you need to pay. It's more like less waste, higher efficiency, and better savings. With this program, you could be on the track of certifying under the true certification, or just planning to get on the highest score, just because you want to save and improve and save on hauling costs that then you can invest in other areas within the organization. Okay, so the next assessment will be at the process level. Here we want to keep consistent indicators. The importance of the indicators and consistency with them is that at the end of the process, you will be able to report in a corporate reporting or corporate sustainability reporting about these indicators. So the more consistent, the easier it will be for the final report. Energy, again, is one of those main indicators, because besides assessing what's the energy usage in the process and trying to minimize that consumption, you also will be tracking the greenhouse gas emissions associated with that process. And the way that you track these GHG emissions is by getting data on the type of resource, like energy input, and then there is indicators already associated to that energy input that will provide the environmental or the GHG emissions. Now, as far as the water usage, we also want to find out what's coming out in the process. Are there any chemicals of concern that will end up on aquatic ecosystems? And how is the company preventing those or cleaning up the water before it goes out from the facility? And then the last one, waste. Again, solid waste generation. How much is generated by every step in the process? And are you reincorporating these wastes for processing, or is this becoming waste going to landfill? Can you make an income stream from selling these wastes into for other industries? So all those things at the process level are important to keep in mind for assessment. The third level of assessment is at the product. Here we use or follow industry standards, typically ISO standards, in industry product category rules to address or evaluate the whole life cycle of a product from raw material to manufacturing, packaging, distribution, use phase, end of life. So what we do is to use a software that had already identified or had already environmental impacts associated to the particular inputs or materials that are in your bill of materials or your product. And then we will have the environmental profile of that particular product. The good thing is that once we obtain these results, this is going to inform the design and development process to make better decisions, and we will be able to optimize the design features so that they can improve the environmental profile of the product. Another use of the product level assessment is to communicate with other businesses and potential clients that you have taken steps to evaluate your design or your product, and that you are looking to optimize the findings from that assessment process. So it's called this is called an environmental product declaration. Okay, so those three levels at the assessment will get you on a path to understand what can be optimized or where are the low-hanging fruits for improvement, to then move to the third key to sustainable manufacturing, which is planning. For the planning, you now are creating a roadmap and establishing the strategies to integrate sustainability from the bottom up to maximize some profits and speak to your audience. Here you will be specifying what are you going to address, how are you going to do that, when are you planning, time frames, and how much are you planning to invest. And along with this roadmap and strategies, you need to create or set goals, which are key to, of course, measure the success of your planning and implementation of sustainability. Typically, I recommend that when you are setting your goals, you look at existing frameworks that have already developed a set of goals for an industry sector. So what I'm showing in this slide is the Sustainable Development Goals. They have specific goals per industry. If you look at the link at the bottom, it will take you to the whole SDGs. Number 12, it's the specific goal for manufacturing. So it's tackling responsible consumption and production. And it has a set of short-term and long-term goals that every industry manufacturing gets will follow. Of course, you will have some more relevant to your own organization, but this is a good starting point to give you guidelines. Okay. And when you are setting these goals, remember that the idea is we can measure. So you have to, you would like to keep, of course, consistency with the assessment indicators and the goals here. Ideally, you have the same indicators to set up your goals, but you also need to start branching out to other areas that are more specific to the process, facility, or product level. So I'm showing an example of product level goals and process level goals. For instance, for the product level, you want to make sure that you consider the whole life cycle when setting up the goals. So one particular case is when we think about, manufacturing and energy. So energy is used in manufacturing, but we sometimes forget about the energy of how much energy is consumed during the use phase, and that can be significant for electrical and electronic equipment. So incorporating those goals and making sense for, whether it's at the product or process level. Also, the supply chain. You want to work with your suppliers. Of course, you want to make sure that if you are on a path to implement sustainability, they know about it and they are also working towards that so that they can support your goals and they also become part of the sustainable system. And then the third one is looking at the process. Are you implementing or looking forward to integrate renewable energy into your manufacturing facility and processes, or are you looking at investing on renewable energy projects outside your facility as a way to offset environmental impacts from your manufacturing. All right. Okay, so after you have the plan, it's time to take action. Now implementing. This is where we have fun. We work with the different teams. And when their plan rolls out to the teams, it's important that they have their own metrics so that we know that they are on the path to really experience and see benefits. The metrics again are related to the indicators, energy waste reduction in water production, and now we have another one, which is material consumption. So depending on the level of assessment in the planning and intervention at the organization, you will have these metrics to continue measuring the success of the program and then implementing. The industry typically implements 2 pilot projects where they are seeing the benefits, and then if they see opportunities, they can still adjust before they roll out to different levels of the organization. So at a facility level, the important thing is to track information or data for 12 months so that you have a way to compare a prior year in how the strategies in the planning have improved for the new year. That way you will be able to adjust to get to a next year goal. In terms of the product level, you also would like to have a baseline so that you can compare one product or at least the functionality of that product. The other difference at the product level is that you can have a screening mechanism in place to help design teams to reevaluate quickly anytime that they make design adjustments. For instance, you find out through the life cycle assessment that there was potential issues with one plastic or one material, and also during the use phase. So once the designer makes adjustments and changes and proposes new materials, you want to make sure that the new selection is better, it's not worse. And what you can do here is to use a quick screening methodology or the metrics to find out whether that has in fact improved the environmental profile or has not made much of a difference, so that the designer can continue adjusting until there is a point where they feel confident that they have met the goal and they use the metrics to measure improvement. Okay, so you have now come to the last key to achieving sustainable manufacturing, which is evaluating. At this stage, you have the KPIs or the indicators that we have used across the entire process. You have the findings from the assessment, have implemented a plan, have first developed a plan, then implemented the plan, and now you are evaluating whether you meet the goals or there needs to be adjustments at any of the levels of implementation. And if the organization feels confident with the results, then there is time for multiplying and maybe rolling out to different processes or different product lines. And once this is kind of familiar for you, then and you are kind of becoming part of the organizations embracing sustainability, now you are ready to enter on the new or the growing industries for business opportunity. The first one is green chemistry. Here it is expected that companies look at the formulas of their products and identify potential risk. So we don't want to have any unexpected results from using products. And this is why investors and the market is looking at how are companies optimizing the chemistry of the products. Green chemistry has looked at reducing human health, but also reducing the potential environmental impact from the chemicals in the products. The second green market that is growing rapidly is green buildings. And this market is not necessarily relevant only for building organizations or for developers. This is relevant for everyone that can provide supply materials, products, electrical equipment for buildings. Anything that goes into buildings has potential to enter and penetrate this growing market. But what the green building is expecting is that we change the traditional design for more flexible designs. For instance, as buildings evolve and the user has different needs, it is expected the products can also evolve with them. So designing for modularity is one of those opportunities where products for buildings can gain part of this market if designs are intentionally made to be adjusted and are flexible enough to allow changes within the interior of buildings. That's one of the opportunities. The next one is looking at self-healing or reducing maintenance costs. For instance, carpets in buildings are those things that are replaced because they get ruined. And one of the things that are expected is that the design of the materials within a building can be repaid in a way that not all the material or the surface have to be removed. So design of a carpet that it's tiles and allows only to replace one part of that, the part that is damaged, is one of those things that the green building environment is expecting. And then the third thing is to, again, look at the health of the material. It is expected that building occupants feel healthy. They don't have any respiratory issues for VOCs associated to paint or any of any chemicals concerning adhesives within buildings. So all those things, looking again at the formulation. And one of the more used methodologies to look at the potential risks in products for buildings is the Material Health Declaration. This is a standard that gives a transparent declaration and addresses or identifies the potential risks of chemicals in a material or a product. So what you do is screening the entire bill of materials and basically at the chemical level, then you will find out whether you need to optimize any of those chemicals, meaning replacing, finding a substitute that is less risky or provide less hazard, and then specifying these under these green building schemas. So with that, before we enter the third market of growth, I'd like to take the next poll here to find out about what you think are the principles of circular economy, which is our third market growth.
So do you know what the circular economy is? Go ahead and select your choices. Okay, another couple of seconds. Okay. So you can see 75% answers 1 and 3, and that's actually correct, right, Anna?
Perfect. Yeah. So the audience knows exactly what the circular economy is. Yeah. So this is a growing emerging business strategy that it's intending to design out waste and pollution, keep materials in use, and regenerate natural ecosystems. And the way that this economy or new strategy is working is focusing on the design phase, because it's there where key decisions can make a product circular. So you will design for an intended end of life, looking at reducing the demand on virgin raw materials and trying to keep the materials in the economy flowing and flowing back to new productive cycles, or if they are intentionally safe for other uses, they will, of course, be going into an alternative end of life. But the whole deal here is to reduce waste as much as possible. So it's important to know that the key for circular economy is material traceability. So we need to understand where materials are coming from, how are they made, and one of the strategies is the blockchain. It's one of those technologies that circular economy intends to use to help tracking supply chain materials and reducing impact, so that we can kind of improve the tracking on where those materials in the economy are and who owns them, and whether there needs to be correction at the supply chain level. So, you know, when we intentionally design and we keep track of those materials, obviously the materials we want to use safer and cleaner, but the intention is that we separate the way we design and we prepare our products for two potential cycles. One is the technical cycle and the other is the biological cycle. As far as the technical cycle, we are looking at resources and materials as technical nutrients, and they are prepared already to continuously flow back into technological cycles. Production, we still look at how inputs are coming and what type of outputs come out of the facility. We look at how the product is used, distributed, and whether it can be returned to a facility for disassembly, or it can be repaid for a second life, or it can be become material for another type of product. So as far as the biological cycle, we look at how, if we use plants, what type of harvesting techniques for the plant. Is that organic? What type of pesticides? Again, production, same inputs, outputs. How is the product distributed? And if the product is, used and there is discharge, what type of discharge is coming out at the use phase? Will that discharge degrade in the ecosystems? And will that pose any risk? Or will it become biological nutrient to start another cycle again? So these new ways of thinking at the design level are providing opportunities for new businesses. So you see, the pictures at the bottom right showing textile waste. Right now is recycled and being used as veneer for furniture and interior applications. And at the upper right corner, we have hempcrete. It's a block made of mushrooms and hemp, and it's obviously carbon neutral, which is expected in green buildings. And it's also used in packaging for computer parts and for wine. So those are the type of solutions that the circular economy is encouraging, and it's kind of integrating technology, challenging the way that we design and we see and interact with materials, and decoupling the end of life, or like decoupling more the technological from the biological resources, and helping us understand that when we design, we not only stop at the use phase, but there is an end of life that we need to consider when creating a design concept. The other practices that are flourishing with circular economy are those that are able to extend or help extend the use phase of a product. One of those is remanufacturing, which is an old industry practice, mostly used for large equipment, automotive components, appliances, and medical devices. And now is gaining momentum here to help extend the life of products, and also repainting. That manufacturing repainting is kind of coupling to help open up new businesses that are focusing on removing or not removing, but reducing the waste, the solid waste that will otherwise go to landfill. So especially for textile waste, what we are seeing is an increasing work on repairing items that are returned to retailers or that are unsold. So these renewable workshops will take these items, inspect them, repair them, and then resell them either to other retailers or directly to the consumer in using different technological tools. So these new kind of ways of doing business are generating the opportunity for new economies, new business, and keeping communities healthy, growing, while also addressing all issues from solid waste. And this is what the circular economy is intended to do. So with that, I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. I want to finalize reminding you that sustainability is the science to provide you with knowledge, frameworks, tools, and strategies to help you find out what can be improved to reduce risk, hazards, inefficiencies, and losses, and improve savings, quality, safety, and value. That you have 5 keys to achieve sustainable manufacturing: commit, assess, plan, implement, and evaluate. And there are 3 growing industries that are eager to get your sustainable solutions: green buildings, circular economy, and green chemistry. And with that, I think we can turn to the audience for any follow-up questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Anna. Very, very informative. As a reminder to our audience, the question pane is still available for any additional questions you may have. And we do have a few, Anna. This first one says a key component of a product life cycle is, whether it can be recycled. Are we seeing more support from private and or public organizations, to existing or potentially new companies which are dedicated to collecting, separating, and recycling materials? Is there more? Are you seeing that in the public that those kinds of companies are getting support?
Yeah, so we're seeing a combination of both. There is an interesting growth from the private sector working in groups dedicated to recycling alternatives for their own sector. But we also see more attention from local governments where they want to invest on recycling facilities. One of the issues of recycling is that separation is costly. So unless we work from the bottom of this triple bottom line, where we as consumers separate materials, it's hard for the recycling system to succeed. One of the issues is that with the price volatility of the oil and what we have seen, oil prices dropping, the cost of virgin material, especially for plastics, it's lower than the cost of recycled plastic. So organizations that are really committed to do these sustainable practices or become sustainable will continue using recycled resources, regardless of the price of the virgin being lower. So there has been more growth from private industry, of course, but also at the local government, we're seeing good advancement. And also, there are issues as well, but I think if we all work together, that can continue being the case.
Okay. I have another question here about, how soon will a company be able to see a return on investment when implementing sustainability?
It all depends.
What have you seen in that?
Yeah, well, it all depends on the level of application or implementation. So for instance, if this is at the facility level and you select a small project, say waste management, you make an audit, then you start implementing some quick quick strategies, it could be quick enough, like 3 to 6 months. But if you look at, at a broader implementation project, could be up to a year, because it all depends on how much you want to do, and also how much data you need to track to make sure that there are significant improvements. Now, at the product level, you could be also making adjustments quickly. So it all depends on the goals that you have as well. If you want to reduce energy consumption, then it could be quick turnarounds for you to start seeing savings. So the strategies could only tackle the particular goal that you are looking at. So it all depends. It could be a big organization program, maybe 1 year to more than 1 year, or it could be at different levels in quicker, shorter projects that could bring a quicker return.
So it depends somewhat on the type of
Project, yeah.
Project that you're putting in place, and
right.
And at what level, I guess, too, whether if it's a process level, you probably see a quicker return than at a facility level.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And it also depends on the goals. Everything in sustainability is kind of depending on your goal. Like if you have a long-term goal, well, of course, if it's a short-term goal, that's quicker.
Okay. Another question, kind of based on the answer is going to be based on your experience. How about the next generation of CEOs that are out there and coming? Is sustainability going to be more of a focus for them? What do you think?
I am convinced of that. And one of the things that we're seeing is that every company today is looking at the value and the positive impact of their business to the community. And they look at resources as valuable, as scarce. They look at how they can keep these resources flowing into the economy. They look in how they impact the ecosystems, whether it's human, capital, or environment. So I think that the new CEOs are embracing sustainability as a must-have for any business that wants to be resilient and sustainable and exist.
Okay. I have another question here from one of our participants. Says, when we tried to do a life cycle analysis, it turned out to be very costly. Are there any incentives that you're aware of from the government or from anywhere else, to do life cycle analyses? Where are they subsidized in any way, or can they be?
Yeah. Well, no, unfortunately, no. In life cycle analysis are one of those very complete and stringent assessments that we do at the product level, but there are also different tools that can give you input and are not as expensive. When we look at a project for product level assessment, I wanna hear first what is the goal and who will be the intended audience to use the results of the assessment. So there are different methodologies that can be implemented. Obviously, the more complete is the life cycle assessment, but that unfortunately has no incentives from the government, or there is no incentives there to make one. It's only the interest of the company, or because a client has requested. It's typically a business to business and for your own internal use. But I mean, there are others that could inform. It all depends on what you need to find out. And I think today with life cycle assessment software, there are ways that you could reduce the cost. It all depends also who you use for your life cycle assessment. Like big sustainability consulting firms will charge more for that. But I think you have to explore the methodologies and also the alternatives for your particular needs.
It might also be, if you don't mind me interjecting here, there may be, sure, if there's any knowledge transfer in life cycle analysis, for instance, if there is an expert who's assisting, and if there's some knowledge transfer from the expert, yeah, to the engineers or the people who are actually involved in the life cycle analysis at the company, they may be eligible for some of the career source training grants, training being correct, knowledge transfer. So that might be a possible, at least there's some way to defray some of the costs that are involved with the analysis itself.
Yeah, I think that is great, Phil. And one thing that I want to emphasize, when I work at the product level, in me, I am a product designer by training, just got trained in sustainability, and this is what I've been doing. But my experience was that the life cycle assessment was a one-time shot for me to understand the whole picture of the impacts. But then as a designer, I needed to do something quicker, and obviously I couldn't repeat the entire process. So there are alternatives like using the metrics. So once I found myself using a quick metric to screen again those new alternatives. And there are other tools, the tools that are used by product design, they do have some analytical apps or tools already inside the software where designers can quickly have an overview of changes if they make new design, select new design alternatives. So there are different things, and I think when you do a life cycle assessment, because it's costly and requires uh, labor, significant labor, it's good that then the knowledge transfer can happen to an internal resource like an engineer, and then designers can also have their own part of the LCA, not as thorough or involved as a whole life cycle assessment, but they can have the metrics based on a life cycle assessment.
Okay, thanks. We still have more time. There is another question. I just want to, put the next slide up here. That the business advisors in around the state, the Florida Makes Business Advisors, can help with that aspect of any kind of a project, and helping you structure the project so it shows knowledge transfer, and then it can be eligible for some grant money in that way. This question again with related to life cycle assessment. What is there an ideal time to start the life cycle assessment? Should it start at product development, or is there some other part of that phase of development and of product that it should begin?
Ideally it should begin at the product design level. And if this is a new product, because what we tend to do is use a baseline or an existing product that is going to be kind of a prior design. That's kind of the intention, that we can base this LCA on that one, and then we adjust based on the new features. So at the design phase is where you wanna make the assessment to be more efficient. Sometimes product is already in development and actually might already be ready to be outside the door. And life cycle assessment can also be applied, but it's less efficient. It's more like used for a communication vehicle of the environmental profile, and then demonstrating that your company is going to do something to adjust at some point the design. But I would say design phase is where you want to take advantage of making the most improvement.
Okay, thank you. We do have time for probably one more question, and I do have one more question here. If I'm a small organization or a small manufacturer, we really haven't focused on sustainability yet. How do we start?
The first thing is to make an assessment of things that you consider could be improved. Find out what the small project that you could start, maybe looking at energy consumption if you are manufacturing, maybe at the process level. So looking at all those indicators that could bring you savings and make your processes efficient. And just to start by one small project, and then once you find out the benefits or you are more familiar with that process, roll out to other levels within the organization.
Okay. I want to thank you, Anna, very much for the presentation and the Q&A here at the end. I think it's very useful and very informative for environmental sustainability and how it can really benefit manufacturers. Well, that brings our webinar to a close, everyone. I want to thank you again, Anna, and thank everyone in the audience today for your participation. As noted earlier, we will make this link available here within a few days. As you exit the webinar, we ask that you please complete the survey. We do always seek your feedback for improving. improvement of the webinars and bringing the topics that you'd like to hear. So again, thank you all, and have a good day and a safe day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.